I am Leah Koenig. I am a food writer and cookbook author, and today we're going to be making my herb garden matzo ball soup. Passover arrives with the beginning of spring, so I love to take traditional recipes and give them a springy vibe. On Passover, there are two different categories of things that you can't eat. The first is called chametz, and that is anything made out of wheat, rye, spelt, oats, or barley. The second category of things that some people don't eat are called kitniot. So those are things like corn and beans and legumes, things that sort of are in the same general family as wheat. With the soup we're making today, there's no kitniot, no chametz, you're good to go. All right, so I have my 4 eggs in here, and I'm just gonna break them up, the yolks, and give them a little whisk. I'm gonna add a neutral oil. I really like to use safflower oil. And here's the secret ingredient, seltzer. Some people really love something called sinkers, which are matzo balls that when you put them in your pot, they kind of sink to the bottom. Some people hate them and love something called floaters, which you can imagine float to the top. And the trick to doing that is you add a little bit of seltzer water to your batter, and it just gives that little aerated lift. So now we're gonna add the star ingredient, which is our matzo meal. It adds the body to your matzo balls. 1 teaspoon of salt for flavor. And we're just gonna get that incorporated. And so what you're looking for here is a nice sort of wet batter, kind of like a thick pancake batter. So I'm gonna set that aside for 1 second, and I'm gonna just chop some herbs. Now this is where I'm adding that springy flavor, that springy vibe to make it really feel perfect for Passover. So I have here some chives. These are fennel fronds. I'm gonna use a little bit of parsley, and honestly, nothing makes me feel like it's Passover. A, more than matzo ball soup, and B, more just than the smell of parsley. So what I like to do is take just this little bundle of herbs, and then I'm just gonna chop it, and we're gonna add our herbs and just give that a stir, and you can already see it's like you're literally infusing springtime into your matzo ball mix. So from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap, and I'm gonna let it hang out in the fridge for about 30 minutes to allow the matzo meal to hydrate and make it easier to roll. So I will see you on the flip side. Welcome back, everybody. Our delicious matzo ball mix has been chilling in the fridge for about 30 minutes, and we're getting ready to form our matzo balls. So what I'm gonna do is I have here a pot of gently simmering water, and I'm gonna form my matzo balls, and then we're gonna plop them into our simmering water, and we're gonna continue that until we've used up all of our matzo ball mix. Honestly, nothing makes it feel more like Passover than making matzo balls. That's the moment where I know like all my prep, all of my thinking and obsessing over the menu and what I'm gonna serve. This is the moment where it kind of transitions to like, okay, we've made it. So once you have all of your matzo balls made, we're gonna cover it, turn the heat down a little bit, and let them simmer for 45 to 55 minutes until they're swollen and puffed up and look delicious and are cooked all the way through. We're gonna cut one open very carefully, and they're uniform in color all the way through, which lets me know that they are ready to go. So I'm gonna turn my attention to the chicken soup. To get started, we are going to peel our carrots. So I'm just gonna cut off the stems, cut them in half, and toss them right into the pot. And it's the same with your celery. Tops and tails off, and then into the pot they go. Now we have onions. And now we're gonna take this beautiful bulb of fennel. So I'm just gonna cut off the stems for now, and we're gonna put them aside for our topping later. And so what I like to do is I quarter them, and then I just take my knife and kind of cut out the woody core. And another just quintessential Jewish ingredient, also many other cultures, but for me, the smell of garlic is just absolutely crucial. And we're just gonna take these and give them a little smash. You do not have to chop them because we're gonna, strain it all out at the end. And as the soup cooks, it'll all kind of come together into this magical broth. We need 2 bay leaves, our parsley, and then we'll put the chicken on the top. Honestly, there's a few ways you can do chicken soup. Sometimes I start with a whole chicken and I just plop it in the pot and cover it, and it turns out just fine, but I also like starting with pieces. So I have here about 10 cups of water, but really what you're looking for is for everything to be just kind of barely covered. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bring this soup up to a boil, and then we're gonna partially cover the pan and lower the heat down to really quite low. And what you're looking for is this gentle bubble. And we're gonna keep an eye on it to make sure it's just kind of at the lowest, kind of barest simmer for about an hour and a half. And I'm gonna check on this soup every 20-30 minutes and skim any foam off the top to make sure we're ending up with a nice clear broth. Okay, so now our chicken soup is cooked. It's looking golden, it's smelling so delicious. And I'm going to take the skin off and shred the meat so it can go back into the soup. And so your chicken is just in these lovely little bite-sized pieces. So I'm gonna strain my vegetables, and what I like to do is just pick it up and kind of press on the vegetables a little bit and make sure all of the liquid comes out. The Yiddish name for chicken soup is literally goldene joich, which means golden broth, and you can see why it has that name when you strain your veggies out. And so now this broth goes back into the pot, just like that. And I'm gonna let that hang out while I chop my carrots, and I'm gonna julienne them. So these are gonna go into my broth along with the chicken that we shredded earlier. Just gonna pop that in. And then we're gonna just finish by seasoning our soup. So I like to start with a tablespoon of kosher salt and a generous amount of black pepper. And we're just gonna stir that all in, bring it back up to the heat to a simmer. And then once the carrots have had about 10 minutes to cook and are nice and soft, then we're gonna plate it up with our matzo balls and finish it off with a beautiful herbal bouquet on the top. So we are at the point of our soup making process where we are gonna really pump up the spring vibes. So I have here both some dill and some fennel fronds, and we're gonna take some chives. We're also gonna add a little bit of parsley, and we're gonna start, just give them a rough chop. I'm gonna add my favorite chicken soup ingredient, fresh lemon zest. And that just adds such a brightness, such a kind of little citrusy zing. And then from there, I'm gonna just keep kind of chopping it all together to make our topping. And as I continue to chop, the lemon zest sort of gets incorporated amongst the herbs so that you'll get a little bit of all the flavors in every bowl. I have my bowl here, and I have the matzo balls that I made and cooked earlier. You can just put them straight from the sheet tray into the bowl. And now I have this beautiful steaming soup. I like to start by getting some of the chicken pieces and the carrots, just to make sure that every bowl has some of the good stuff. And then I top it off with my broth. Wow, it smells so, so delicious. And then I'm gonna finish it off with two things. The first is a generous sprinkle of those beautiful herbs. Look at how just much like that looks like a garden. I love it so much. And you can see the lemon zest kind of on top of the matzo balls, adding that little bit of sunniness. And then this is an optional step, but I really like to do it to kind of just gild the lily, kind of go for the full spring thing. I like to get some edible flowers, any type you like, and just add, I like to add 1 or 2 flowers, maybe even 3 around the sides of the bowl. If you have smaller ones, you can do a few more. And just look at that amazing, amazing color. So let's go ahead and take a bite. Get that perfect bite of a little chicken, a little matzo ball, a little carrot, and all of those beautiful spring herbs. That was so good. I got the brightness from the herbs and the richness from the broth, and with that little hint of sweetness that came from the fennel. It's the perfect mix of sweet and savory and bright and lemony. It's absolutely delicious.